The evening sun cast long shadows across the living room, illuminating the dust motes dancing lazily in a world that had just begun to settle into silence. James Allen, a man of 62 years, sat in his worn leather armchair, the fabric whispering memories of countless evenings spent alone. The walls of the house pulsed with the history of his family. Photos of birthdays, holidays, and unguarded laughter, now all mere echoes of laughter long faded. He had built this home, brick by brick, every nail driven into the frame, a testament to his love and sacrifices for his family. But love, as he had come to realize, was a fragile thing, easily shattered by betrayal. As he sipped his lukewarm coffee, the familiar creak of the front door snapped him from his reverie. It was his son, Marcus, stepping in with a buoyant energy that felt foreign in the somber atmosphere of the house. James forced a smile, but it faltered as he saw the glint of something in Marcus's eyes, a spark of triumph that sent a chill down his spine. "Dad!" Marcus exclaimed, his voice dripping with excitement. "You won't believe what just happened." James set his cup down, the ceramic clinking against the wood as he leaned forward, bracing himself for the news. "What is it, son?" Marcus took a deep breath, and for a moment, the anticipation hung in the air like a promise. "I sold the house." The word struck James like a physical blow, the breath knocked from his lungs. "What do you mean you sold the house?" The bitterness in his voice surprised even him, a slow burn igniting in his chest. "I mean, it's gone. I made a deal with some buyers downtown. They're going to renovate it and turn it into a rental property." "I thought you'd be thrilled." Marcus's enthusiasm was palpable, a stark contrast to the sinking feeling in James's stomach. "Thrilled?" James echoed, disbelief tinting his words. "You sold my house without telling me?" Marcus shrugged, a nonchalant gesture that only stoked the fire of James's anger. "Dad, you've been struggling to keep up with the bills. This way, you can get some money and finally get a fresh start. It's a win-win." James stood, the chair creaking ominously beneath him. "This isn't your decision to make, Marcus. This is my home, my life. You don't just sell it like it's some old car." The silence that followed was thick, heavy with unspoken words and unacknowledged truths. James felt the walls closing in, memories of his late wife swirling in the air, a ghost of the love that had once filled the space. The pain of loss had never truly left him, but now it was compounded by the sting of betrayal. "Look, I know you're upset," Marcus said, the bravado slipping from his voice, "but I did this for you. We both know you can't afford to keep it. It's for the best." "For whom?" James's voice trembled with restrained fury. "You think it's best for me to lose everything I've worked for? To lose the memories, the foundation of our family?" Marcus's face hardened, a mask of defiance replacing the earlier excitement. "You're being unreasonable. This house is nothing but a burden. You need to face reality." As James stared into his son's eyes, he saw not just the boy he had raised but a stranger, a man who had chosen greed over loyalty. The realization settled like a stone in his gut. Marcus was not just desperate. He was in over his head, perhaps entangled with forces James could only begin to imagine. The anger was replaced by a cold, calculating resolve. He had always been the quiet one, the one who listened more than he spoke, but that didn't mean he was without resources. Somewhere deep within him, beyond the hurt and betrayal, a flicker of determination ignited. "You think this is over, don't you?" James said, his voice low and steady. "You think I'll just roll over and let you take everything from me? What are you going to do? Call the cops?" Marcus scoffed, though the bravado was laced with uncertainty. "You won't win. I already signed the papers." James felt the weight of the moment, the implications of his next words swirling in the air like a storm brewing on the horizon.
"No, Marcus."
"I won't call the cops. I'm going to call the FBI." The shock on Marcus's face was a fleeting moment of victory for James, a small solace in the midst of his unraveling world. He watched as the realization settled in, saw the flicker of fear cross his son's features. There was a part of him that wanted to reach out, to console the boy he had loved unconditionally. But that boy had made his choice, and now he would face the consequences. For an hour, James sat in silence, the phone in his hand feeling heavier than it ever had. He stared at it, contemplating the path ahead. The betrayal cut deep, but deep within him, the embers of revenge were igniting. It was a slow burn, a gradual realization that he would not only reclaim his home but also teach his son a lesson about the cost of greed. As dusk settled outside, James finally dialed the number, his heart racing, but his mind unwavering. He would reclaim what was his, not just for himself but for the dignity that had been stripped away. The FBI would help him turn the tide, but he would do so much more than that. He would show Marcus what it truly meant to lose everything, and perhaps, in doing so, he would teach him the value of respect, trust, and family. The air in the living room felt thick, as if it were charged with unsaid words and unexpressed emotions. James stood by the window, his gaze lost in the dimming light of the evening. Shadows stretched across the hardwood floor, creeping toward him like dark memories he wished he could ignore. He clenched his fists, feeling the roughness of the wood beneath his fingertips, grounding him in a reality that felt increasingly surreal. "Dad, please listen," Marcus's voice trembled, pulling him back from the abyss of his thoughts. "I did this for you. I thought you'd be grateful." James turned, his heart heavy with a mix of disbelief and sorrow. "Grateful? You think selling my house, our home, is something I should be thankful for?" The raw edge in his voice surprised him, but it was too late to soften the words. "I didn't think you'd want to stay here anymore," Marcus said, his youthful face a mask of frustration. "You haven't been able to afford the upkeep. The bills are piling up. This place is too much for you. I thought." "You thought? You thought you could just make that decision for me?" James interjected, his voice rising. "This house is more than bricks and mortar. It's my life, Marcus. Every corner holds a memory. Every room tells a story. You can't just erase that." Marcus's eyes flashed with defiance. "I'm trying to help you. You're so stubborn, acting like you can still handle everything on your own. But you can't. You're not as young as you used to be." The words cut deeper than James expected. He felt the sting of Marcus's accusation, a bitter reminder of the frailty he had been trying to ignore. Stubbornness is one thing, but this is betrayal. His voice cracked, revealing the vulnerability he had tried so hard to conceal. "Betrayal?" Marcus echoed, disbelief etched on his face. "I thought you'd see this as a new start. You could move to a nice apartment, have less to worry about. You could finally relax." James's chest tightened at the thought of moving, of leaving the only place that had ever felt like home. "Relax? You think I can just walk away from everything? From your mother's laughter in the kitchen? From the way the light filters through those windows in the morning? This house holds our history, Marcus. It's not just a roof over my head. It's a sanctuary. I'm trying to protect you." Marcus shot back, his frustration turning to anger. "You're too caught up in nostalgia. The world has changed, Dad. You need to change with it." The room fell into a heavy silence, punctuated only by the ticking of the clock on the wall, a sound that had always provided comfort, but now felt like a countdown to an inevitable disaster. James took a step back, needing space to breathe, to think. His heart raced as he wrestled with the reality of his son's actions. Was this really about helping him, or was Marcus simply trying to justify his own decisions? "Do you even understand what you've done?" James finally said, his voice quieter now, more pained. "You've stripped away my choices, my autonomy. You've turned my life into a transaction, a business deal. I was trying to save you from yourself." Marcus interrupted, throwing his hands up in exasperation. "You're too proud to admit you need help. I'm not going to stand by and watch you drown in bills and worry. I thought this was what you wanted." James shook his head, the weight of disappointment settling heavily on his shoulders. "What I wanted was for you to respect my decisions, to trust that I know what's best for myself. Instead, you took away my control." Marcus's expression shifted, the anger fading to something softer. "I thought I was doing the right thing," he murmured almost to himself. "I thought you'd see it that way too." James felt a flicker of sympathy for his son, but it was quickly overshadowed by the betrayal that gnawed at him. "You can't make decisions for me, Marcus. Not like this." He paused, the silence enveloping them once more. "And now, I'm going to call the FBI." The words hung in the air, heavy and charged with a sense of finality. Marcus's eyes widened in shock. "The FBI? Are you serious? For what? You think they're going to help you get back a house? You think they care?" "I think they care enough about fraud," James replied, his voice steadying. "And that's exactly what this feels like. You sold my house without my consent. That's not just a mistake. That's a crime." "Dad, wait," Marcus started, desperation creeping into his tone. "You don't know what you're doing. Things can be fixed. We can talk this out. Just don't involve them. Please." But James felt the cold resolve hardening in his chest. The betrayal cut too deep, and though a part of him wished for reconciliation, the other part screamed for justice. "You've left me no choice," he said, his voice unwavering. "You took my home, Marcus. You took my life." As he turned away from his son, he reached for his phone, feeling the smooth, cool surface beneath his fingers. The decision weighed heavily on him, but he knew he had to act. This was about more than just a house. It was about respect, trust, and the bond that had been shattered. "Don't do this," Marcus pleaded, his voice breaking. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I was helping." James's heart twisted, torn between love for his son and the need to stand firm. "Helping? This isn't helping. You've crossed a line." He pressed the numbers in, his mind racing with the implications of what he was about to do. As the phone rang, every sound in the room faded into the background. The ticking clock, the rustle of leaves outside, the faint hum of the refrigerator. He felt as though he were standing on the edge of a precipice, the ground below shifting beneath his feet. "Hello, this is Agent Carter from the FBI. A voice on the other end said, sharp and professional. James took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. "I need to report a potential case of fraud involving the sale of my family home." The words spilled out, each syllable tinged with the weight of his emotions. He could sense Marcus's presence behind him, the tension palpable, like a storm brewing just out of sight. As he spoke, he felt the walls of his sanctuary closing in around him. The warm memories of laughter and love began to blur, replaced by a cold dread settling over the house he once cherished. He could feel the shadows creeping closer, thickening in the corners as he prepared to face the consequences of his son's actions. In that moment, as he recounted the details of the sale, he knew that everything was about to change. The warmth of the past was slipping away, and what lay ahead was uncertain, fraught with conflict, but also a glimmer of hope. A hope that perhaps, in confronting this betrayal, he could reclaim not just his house, but the dignity that had been stripped away from him. And maybe, just maybe, it would lead to something greater for both him and Marcus. But first, there would be consequences. James Allen's hands trembled as he dialed the number for the FBI, his heart racing with every ring. Each tone echoed in his mind like a death knell, reminding him of the abyss that had opened between him and his son. The memories of laughter and warmth, family dinners, holiday celebrations, the sound of Marcus's childhood laughter bouncing off the walls, flashed before his eyes, creating a stark contrast to the cold reality he faced now. "FBI, how can I help you?" The voice on the other end was brisk and professional, cutting through his reverie. Yes, I'd like to report a potential fraud. James stammered, his throat tight as he tried to muster the words. My son. He sold my house without my permission. Can you provide your name and the address of the property in question? The agent asked, unfazed by the gravity of his statement. James recited the address, feeling as if he were writing a eulogy for a life he once cherished. The house on Maple Street had been his fortress, a repository of memories that now felt like ghosts haunting the empty rooms. Sir, I'll need to gather some more information. Can you explain the circumstances surrounding the sale? The agent's tone was steady, but James could hear the faint note of skepticism beneath it. It's complicated, he said, his voice cracking. My son acted without consulting me. I believe he thought he was helping, but it feels like betrayal. The house means everything to me. There was a pause, and James's heart sank further. Had he become just another old man, too sentimental to understand the practicalities of modern life? Sir, I understand this is a difficult situation. We'll take your report, but I must advise you that legal action may be necessary. You might want to consult a lawyer. As the conversation ended, James hung up, staring blankly at the wall. That advice had cut deeper than any knife. A lawyer? It felt like a betrayal of its own, a sign that his family was splintering, each member retreating to their own corners of the ring. He shuffled into the living room, where the fading light of the evening cast long shadows across the floor. The air was thick with silence, a heavy blanket that pressed down on his chest. He glanced at the old photographs lining the mantelpiece. Marcus as a toddler, his chubby hands reaching for a Christmas ornament. A teenage Marcus grinning while holding a trophy from his high school soccer team. A proud father-son moment at Marcus's graduation. Why, Marcus? He whispered into the stillness, as if the walls might offer him an explanation. Suddenly, the sound of a key turning in the lock jolted him from his thoughts. The door creaked open, and in walked Marcus, his face flushed with the remnants of an argument or perhaps a long day at work. The sight of his son stirred a tempest of emotions within James, a mix of love and anger so potent it was almost unbearable. Dad, Marcus began, but the words died on his lips as he took in his father's expression. James felt the weight of the moment settle around them, thick and suffocating. You sold my house, Marcus. The words tumbled out, raw and jagged, like shards of glass. I did what I thought was best. Marcus shot back defensively, his youthful bravado flickering under the intensity of his father's gaze. You were struggling. The bills were piling up. I wanted to help you, Dad. Help me? James's voice cracked like a brittle branch underfoot. You ripped my life apart without even considering how it would affect me. You think selling this place will solve everything? It's not just a house. It's home. It's our memories. Memories don't pay the mortgage, Dad. Marcus snapped, his frustration boiling over. You're living in the past. This is the real world. I thought you'd be grateful for a fresh start. Fresh start, James echoed, incredulous. Did you even think for a moment about what this place means to me? What it meant for your mother before she passed? This house is filled with her spirit. For a moment, silence enveloped them, heavy and charged. James could see the cracks in Marcus's confident facade. He looked younger than ever, a boy grappling with an adult's decisions. I thought I was doing the right thing, Marcus whispered, the fight draining from him. I wanted to make sure you didn't have to worry about anything anymore. James's heart twisted at the sight of his son's vulnerability. Deep down, he understood the desire to help, yet the means Marcus had chosen felt like a dagger to the heart of their relationship. Help? You didn't help me, son. You betrayed me. The words hung in the air, sharp and painful. I raised you to respect the value of family, to understand that our home is where our hearts are anchored. You've taken that away from me. Tears welled in Marcus's eyes, and for a moment, James felt a flicker of hope that perhaps they could bridge the chasm that had developed between them. But then Marcus's expression hardened, and he turned away, retreating to the kitchen as if the warmth of the memories had turned to ice. "Marcus, please," James called, his voice softer now, tinged with desperation. "Talk to me. We can figure this out together." "I don't know if there's anything to figure out, Dad," Marcus replied, his voice muffled as he leaned against the counter. "You don't see it from my side. I'm trying to protect you." "Protect me? Or protect your own guilt?" The words slipped out before James could stop them, and he regretted the harshness as soon as they left his mouth. Marcus straightened, his back stiffening. "You don't understand. I'm just trying to do what's best for you, for us. But you keep clinging to things that can't help you anymore." The tension in the room crackled like electricity, and James felt as if he were standing on the edge of an abyss. "If you're trying to help, why didn't you talk to me first? Why didn't you let me in? I thought you'd just say no," Marcus shouted, his frustration boiling over again. "You always resist change. I wanted to take decisive action before it was too late." "Too late for what?" James countered, his voice rising in disbelief. "Too late to have a conversation? Too late to find a solution together." Marcus clenched his fists, his expression a mix of anger and sorrow. "I thought you'd be happy, Dad. I thought you'd thank me for getting you out of this situation." The hurt in Marcus's eyes pierced through James like a dagger. "You've taken away my choice, my voice. You've stripped me of my dignity." "I didn't mean to." Marcus's voice cracked, the weight of his own guilt evident. "I just wanted to help you start anew. I thought that if I sold the house, you'd have the money to travel, to explore life outside of this prison." "Prison?" James echoed, feeling the bitter sting of betrayal twist deeper. "This is not a prison. This is my home. My life." Silence descended again, heavy and oppressive, as both father and son stood in the kitchen, the gulf between them widening with every passing moment. James could feel the walls of the house closing in, the memories of laughter and love tainted by the shadows of their current reality. "Maybe I should have consulted you first," Marcus finally muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I thought I was doing what was right." James closed his eyes, inhaling the familiar scent of the kitchen, the hint of vanilla from the candles his late wife used to light, the lingering aroma of her favorite meals. "Right for you or right for me, Marcus?" "I don't know," Marcus admitted, his voice cracking. "I just wanted to fix things." "Fixing things doesn't mean tearing apart what's already there." James took a deep breath, his heart aching. "I need time to think, Marcus. I need to process this. You've taken something precious from me, and I don't know if I can forgive that easily." With that, James turned and walked away, leaving Marcus standing in the kitchen, his silhouette framed by the fading light of the evening. In that moment, James felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. The house that had once been a sanctuary now felt like a battleground, where love and betrayal clashed in the echo of their voices. As he climbed the stairs to his bedroom, he glanced back, hoping to see Marcus follow him, to see a sign of reconciliation. But the kitchen remained silent, a void where laughter once thrived. James closed the door behind him, the click resounding like a finality he hadn't anticipated. He sank onto the bed, the weight of the past crashing down upon him. He needed to decide what to do next. The FBI had taken his report, but now he was left with the aftermath. How could he navigate this fractured relationship? Could he ever truly understand Marcus's intentions, or would they remain forever at odds? Two souls adrift in a sea of betrayal? The shadows deepened in the room around him, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, James felt a profound loneliness settle in his heart, like a blanket of snow covering the remnants of a once vibrant life. He had to find a way to reclaim not just the house, but the connection with his son before it was too late. Because even in the midst of betrayal, love still lingered, waiting for a chance to heal. The air in the house had grown thick with unspoken words and unresolved tension. Shadows stretched across the living room, elongating like the memories James had once cherished, now tainted by betrayal. He stood by the window, the last rays of sunset filtering through the glass, casting a golden hue over the furniture that had witnessed countless family gatherings. Each piece, a weathered armchair, a faded rug, the heavy oak dining table, was steeped in history, whispering stories of laughter and love. But now, they felt like silent witnesses to a crime, their warmth replaced by a chilling sense of loss. "Dad," Marcus's voice broke through James's reverie, sharp and insistent. "You have to understand why I did it." James turned slowly, his heart a storm of emotions. "Understand? You sold my house, Marcus, my home. You didn't even bother to ask me." The words tumbled out, each one a dagger aimed at the heart of their fragile relationship. "I was trying to help." Marcus's voice rose, desperation creeping in. "You're struggling, and I thought." "Thought what?" James interrupted, his voice low but edged with anger. "Thought you could just take control of my life? This isn't just a house to me. It's memories. It's family." "Family?" Marcus scoffed, crossing his arms defiantly. "You're so caught up in nostalgia that you can't see the bigger picture. We're in debt, Dad. The bills are piling up, and you're acting like we're still living in some fairy tale." James shook his head, the weight of sorrow settling heavily on his shoulders. "And you thought selling my memories was the answer? You think I don't know about the debts? I've been fighting them for years. This place," he gestured around the room, "is all I have left of your mother." The mention of his late wife hung in the air, a ghost that both men felt but dared not confront. Marcus's face softened for a fleeting moment, vulnerability cracking his bravado. "I know, Dad. I miss her too. But I thought, maybe if we could free some cash, we could start fresh. I didn't mean to hurt you." "Your intentions don't matter if the outcome is betrayal," James said, his voice barely above a whisper, yet heavy with conviction. "You've taken away my choice. You made a decision for me without considering what it would do to our family." Marcus shifted uncomfortably, his youthful exuberance now a shadow of regret. "I thought I could save you. I thought you'd be grateful." James's heart clenched at the raw sincerity in his son's eyes, but the anger still simmered beneath the surface. "Grateful for what? Being stripped of my home? My dignity? You've put me in a position where I feel like a stranger in my own life." "I didn't want you to feel alone," Marcus said, his voice cracking. "You've been so distant since Mom passed. I thought if I made this decision, it would bring us closer, help us both move forward." James closed his eyes, the memories flooding back unbidden. Marcus as a child, laughing and running through the yard, the two of them fixing up the old porch together. Those days felt like a lifetime ago, swallowed by the weight of grief and miscommunication. "You're right about one thing," he said finally. "I do feel alone, but not because of this house. I feel alone because you've chosen to act without me." As the silence stretched between them, the distance felt insurmountable. The sunset had faded, leaving the room cloaked in shadows, the warmth replaced by a coldness that seeped into James's bones. He turned away from Marcus, staring out into the darkening sky, where stars began to flicker like distant hopes. "I'm calling the FBI," he said, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. "I have to report this. This is fraud, and you know it." "Dad, please." Marcus's voice trembled, laced with panic. "You can't do that. It'll ruin everything. We can fix this, I promise." James's resolve hardened, the determination rising within him like a tide. "You've ruined everything already, Marcus. I need to fight for what's mine. I can't just let you take this away from me." "Fight? By calling the FBI?" Marcus shot back, his frustration boiling over. "Do you really think that's going to solve anything? You'll be dragging our family through the mud." "It's already in the mud, son," James replied, his voice steady but heavy with sorrow. You've buried us with your choices. I need to reclaim my life, and that starts with taking back what's been taken from me." With that, he turned and walked toward the phone, each step feeling like a march into a battlefield. This was not just about the house. It was about control, respect, and the fragile thread that still connected him to Marcus. He could feel Marcus's eyes on him, a mix of anger and hurt that mirrored his own. "Dad, please don't do this," Marcus begged, his voice quieter now, almost pleading. "I just wanted to help. I thought this was the best way." James paused, the phone in his hand, and turned to face his son. "Help? Is this what you call help? Ignoring my wishes and selling off our family's legacy. I thought I was being practical," Marcus shouted, exasperation spilling over. "You need to wake up and stop living in the past. We can't afford to keep clinging to memories that won't pay the bills. Memories can't be measured in dollars." James snapped back, the anger bursting forth like a dam breaking. "This isn't just about money. It's about respect, loyalty. It's about family." Marcus's shoulders slumped, the fight draining from him. "I just wanted to protect you," he murmured, his voice barely audible. James felt a pang of empathy, but it was quickly overshadowed by the bitter taste of betrayal. "You can't protect me by taking away my choices. That's not love, Marcus. That's control." The silence that followed was heavy, thick with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. James could see the turmoil in Marcus's eyes, a storm of regret and frustration. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about the very foundation of their relationship, now shaken and fractured. As James finally dialed the number, his heart raced, each ring echoing in the hollow space between them. He had to do this. He had to reclaim his life, even if it meant tearing down the walls that had once been their sanctuary. When the call connected, the voice on the other end was crisp and professional, a stark contrast to the emotional chaos swirling in the living room. "FBI, how can I assist you today?" James hesitated for a brief moment, the weight of the decision crashing down on him. But he pushed through, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I need to report a fraudulent property sale. My son sold my house without my consent." As he spoke, he could feel Marcus's gaze burning into him, a mix of disbelief and despair. The warmth of the memories, the laughter, and the love that had once filled the halls of their home now felt distant, like a fading photograph. "Sir, can you provide me with details about the sale?" the voice on the other end prompted. James took a deep breath, his heart heavy. "Yes, I can. It's my family home, and I need it back." As he relayed the details, Marcus's expression shifted, a mix of realization and horror dawning on his face. The reality of what had transpired settled between them like a chasm, deepening the fracture in their relationship. "I'm sorry, Dad," Marcus finally said, his voice trembling. "I thought I was doing what was best." James could only nod, the weight of their shared history pressing down on him. Sometimes what we think is best isn't what's needed at all. As he hung up the phone, the silence felt even more pronounced. James glanced at Marcus, their eyes locking in a moment of painful understanding. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and the potential for deeper wounds. But amid the shadows of betrayal, a flicker of determination began to glow within him. He had taken the first step toward reclaiming his life, and now the question loomed. Could he also reclaim his relationship with the son who had betrayed him? The walls of the house seemed to pulse with the weight of James's anguish as he stood rooted in the living room, the echoes of laughter and warmth now replaced by a suffocating silence. Shadows stretched long across the floorboards, creeping toward him as if to mock his despair. The familiar scent of his late wife's lavender candles lingered, a bittersweet reminder of happier times now tainted by betrayal. "Dad, please," Marcus's voice broke through the tension, desperate yet tinged with impatience. "I did what I thought was best." James's heart raced, a wild drum beating in his chest. He turned to face his son, the fiery resolve in his eyes clashing with the flickering uncertainty that danced in Marcus's. Best for whom, Marcus? You or me? The question hung in the air, thick as the summer humidity outside. Marcus averted his gaze, tracing the outline of a family photo on the mantelpiece. A snapshot of better days, where smiles were genuine and trust was unshakable. I didn't want you to lose the house to the bank, he finally replied, his voice cracking under the strain of his own conviction. It was going to happen anyway. You were too proud to ask for help. James clenched his fists, his knuckles turning white. Pride doesn't justify stealing my home. You had no right to make that decision without me. The words came out sharper than he intended, each syllable laced with a mixture of hurt and fury. Marcus's jaw tightened, the flicker of defiance igniting in his eyes. I thought you'd be grateful. I thought. You thought wrong. James cut him off, the air thickening with the weight of unspoken emotions. This house isn't just a roof over my head. It's our family's history. Every corner holds a memory, every room a story, and you've turned it into a transaction. James's voice wavered, the dam of his emotions threatening to burst. He took a breath, letting the sorrow wash over him like a wave, pulling him under. I've spent years building a life here, Marcus. It's not just a financial asset to be sold off without a second thought. For a moment, silence enveloped them, broken only by the distant chirping of crickets outside, heralding the encroaching night. The shadows deepened, the world outside darkening, mirroring the turmoil within. Dad, Marcus began, but the weight of his father's gaze silenced him. James turned away, retreating into the sanctuary of memories that filled the living room. He walked slowly, his fingers grazing the worn spines of books on the shelves, touching the remnants of a life that felt so fragile now. Each title, a reminder of countless evenings spent wrapped in stories. His wife beside him, laughter echoing through the halls. Did you even think about how I'd feel? James whispered, more to himself than to Marcus. Did you stop to consider what this place means to me? I was trying to help. Marcus's voice rose, desperation cracking through the bravado. I thought you'd want to be free of all this. You keep saying how hard it is for you to manage, and I thought what? That selling my home would bring me peace. James turned abruptly, his eyes blazing with a mixture of sorrow and anger. You've taken everything from me, Marcus. Everything I held dear. I didn't take anything. I just wanted to. Wanted to what? Save me from myself. James interrupted, his voice now a low growl, the tension stretching like a taut wire ready to snap. I'm not a child anymore. I can make my own decisions, even if they're mistakes. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus looked at his father, his expression shifting from defiance to a dawning realization of the gravity of his actions. James could see the moment the weight of regret settled on his son's shoulders, but it was too late. I'm calling the FBI, James declared, the words heavy and final, as if sealing a pact with the universe. The thought of involving authorities felt like a betrayal in itself, but it was a measure of control he desperately needed. Dad, please, Marcus pleaded, his voice trembling. Don't do this. You don't understand what you're asking for. I understand perfectly, James shot back, his resolve hardening like steel. You've committed fraud, Marcus. You've sold my house without my consent. I can't just sit idly by and let this happen. I was trying to protect you. You're not thinking straight. Marcus's voice cracked, raw and vulnerable. Do you really think this is the answer? To drag our family through the mud? James's heart pounded. His emotions swirled like a tempest within him, battling against the love he still felt for his son, even amidst the betrayal. You've already dragged us through the mud, Marcus. This is the consequence of your actions, not mine. The phone felt heavy in his hand, the decision weighing down on his conscience. He knew he was about to step into uncharted territory, the kind that could fracture their relationship beyond repair. But as he glanced around the room, memories whispering from the walls, he felt a flicker of determination. "I won't let you take away my dignity," he said, voice steadying. "Not without a fight." Marcus's shoulders sagged, and for a moment, he looked like a lost child, stripped of his bravado. "Dad, I didn't want to hurt you," he murmured, voice barely above a whisper. "I just wanted to help." James's heart clenched at the pain etched in his son's face, a reminder of the bond they once shared. "I know you believe that, but help isn't about making choices for someone else. It's about respecting their autonomy." Marcus fell silent, the fight draining from him like water slipping through clenched fingers. The room felt colder, the warmth they once shared now a distant memory. James glanced at the clock on the wall, its ticking echoing like the countdown to an impending storm. "Where's the paperwork?" James asked, his voice firm, needing to take the first step toward reclaiming his life. "It's in the home office," Marcus replied, his shoulders slumping. "I'll get it." James watched as Marcus shuffled away, the weight of their conflict lingering in the air like a thick fog. The distance between them felt insurmountable, yet within that space, he sensed a flicker of hope, a possibility for understanding, even amidst the wreckage of their relationship. As Marcus disappeared down the hall, James stood alone, surrounded by the ghosts of his past. The house felt alive, breathing with memories that both comforted and haunted him. He closed his eyes, imagining his wife's laughter, the warmth of her embrace, and the way she would have known how to navigate this storm. "Help me find a way back," he whispered to the shadows, longing for the clarity that had eluded him since Marcus's revelation. A soft rustle broke the silence as Marcus returned, a stack of papers clutched in his hands. The look of determination on his face was a stark contrast to the despondency that had settled moments before. "Here," he said, his voice steadier. "I know it's too late to take it back, but let's figure this out together." James took the papers, his heart racing with a mix of dread and hope. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but as he looked into his son's eyes, he realized that perhaps, just perhaps, there was still a chance for reconciliation. "Together," he echoed softly, the word hanging in the air like a fragile promise. And in that moment, amidst the remnants of betrayal and heartache, a flicker of understanding ignited, a glimmer of a way forward, however uncertain it might be. The air in the living room felt thick, an invisible fog of unspoken words and unresolved feelings swirling between James and Marcus. The once vibrant hues of the room, filled with the warmth of family memories, seemed to dim, the shadows lengthening as the evening light filtered through the windows. James stood by the fireplace, fingers brushing against the polished wood of the mantel, where framed photographs of happier times smiled back at him. In those moments captured in time, he could almost hear his late wife's laughter echoing through the walls, reminding him of the love that had once filled this home. But now the silence was deafening. "Dad, please," Marcus's voice broke through the haze, trembling with an urgency that cut through James like a knife. "You have to understand. I was trying to do what's best for you." James turned, his heart heavy with a mixture of anger and sorrow. "Best for me? Selling my house without even asking? You think that's what's best?" Marcus ran a hand through his tousled hair, frustration etched across his youthful face. "I thought I was helping. The bills are piling up, and you're too proud to ask for help. I just wanted to relieve some of that burden." James's eyes narrowed, a storm brewing within him. "You don't get to decide what's best for me, Marcus. This house isn't just bricks and mortar. It's my home. It's where I raised you, where we shared our lives. How could you do this?" The last word lingered in the air, hanging between them like a chasm that seemed impossible to bridge. "I didn't think you'd react like this," Marcus replied, his voice dropping to a whisper, as if he were afraid to disturb the fragile atmosphere. I thought you'd see it as a way to move forward. Move forward. James's voice rose, the tension spilling over. Moving forward means honoring the past, not erasing it. You don't sell our memories, Marcus. He felt the weight of every word, each one a reminder of their fractured bond. The room felt colder now, the sunlight retreating as shadows encroached upon their confrontation. I don't even recognize you anymore, he added, his voice cracking. Who are you to make such decisions? I'm your son. Marcus shot back, his frustration boiling over. And I'm trying to save you from yourself. You're lost in this house, Dad. It's like you're clinging to it as if it can bring Mom back. It can't. At that, a sharp pain pierced James's heart, a reminder of the void that had been left in the wake of his wife's death. The anger that had simmered within him flickered momentarily, replaced by a deep sense of grief. You don't understand, he said, his voice softer now, almost pleading. This house is all I have left of her. It's not just about walls and a roof. It's about love, history, and the life we built together. You're throwing that away. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of their shared memories and the rift that now lay between them. Marcus shifted his weight, the resolve in his stance faltering. I just wanted to help, he murmured, eyes cast downward. I thought you'd be grateful. James closed his eyes, the pain in his chest tightening like a noose. Grateful? For what? For you taking away my agency? For you assuming you know what I need better than I do? He opened his eyes, meeting his son's gaze. You've taken something that can't be replaced, Marcus. You've betrayed my trust. I didn't mean to. Marcus's voice cracked, desperation coloring his words. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought you'd want to be freed from all this pressure. Freed, James repeated, incredulous. You think this is pressure? This is my life, Marcus. My memories, my grief. You've turned my home into a transaction. The room was silent, save for the ticking of the clock on the wall, each second a reminder of the widening gap between them. James felt the room closing in, the shadows deepening as his heart wrestled with the conflicting emotions that surged within him. There was anger, yes, but beneath it lay an overwhelming sense of loss. Not just for the house, but for the relationship he had once cherished with his son. Maybe I should have trusted you more, Marcus finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. But you've been so distant since Mom died. I just wanted to reach out, to help you find a way out of this sadness. I don't need saving, Marcus, James replied, the words trembling on his lips. What I need is for you to understand what this house represents. It's not just walls. It's our family. It's where I keep her alive in my heart. Marcus looked pained, the guilt etched on his face. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said, his voice cracking. I thought I was doing what any good son would do. James took a step back, the distance between them feeling insurmountable. A good son listens. A good son respects his father's wishes. You didn't even consult me. You just went ahead and made a decision that changes everything. The silence that followed was deafening. James could feel his heart pounding, a drumbeat of unresolved conflict echoing in his chest. He wanted to scream, to lash out, to shake Marcus until he understood the weight of his actions. But instead, he felt an overwhelming sense of helplessness. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a battleground where love had turned into resentment. I'm calling the FBI, James said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. You crossed a line, Marcus. This isn't just about the house anymore. It's about trust. And you've broken that trust. No, don't do that. Marcus's voice rose, desperation spilling over. You can't. This will ruin everything. Maybe it's already ruined, James replied, the finality of his words hanging in the air like a guillotine. You made your choice, and now I have to make mine. James turned away, the weight of his decision heavy on his shoulders. He felt a mixture of resolve and sorrow, knowing that the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. As he reached for his phone, he could feel Marcus's eyes burning into his back, a silent plea hanging in the air. "Dad, please," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "I never wanted it to come to this." James paused, his heart aching at the sound of his son's despair. But he knew deep down that this was a moment of reckoning. If he didn't take a stand now, the bond they shared would continue to erode, buried under the weight of betrayal and misunderstanding. With a deep breath, he dialed the number, his heart racing as the line connected. He glanced back at Marcus, who stood rooted to the spot, anguish etched on his face. "I have to protect what's mine," James said softly, the words like steel in his voice, "even if it means losing you." As he spoke to the operator, he felt the gravity of his decision settle over him. The shadows in the room deepened, intertwining with the memories that clung to the walls, a bittersweet reminder of the love that had once flourished here. James knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but he was determined to reclaim his life, even if it meant fighting against the very person he had once nurtured. Some battles were worth waging, even if victory came at a steep price. And as he hung up the phone, the weight of his resolve settled like an anchor in his soul, a promise to himself that he would not be a victim of betrayal, no matter the cost. The phone felt heavy in James's hand, a lead weight tethered to his growing frustration and confusion. He stared at the screen, the numbers glinting in the fading light like a beacon of impending conflict. An hour had passed since Marcus dropped the bombshell, and now the shadows of the family home closed in around him, the once warm walls feeling cold and unwelcoming. "Dad, you can't be serious," Marcus said, his voice rising. He leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, defiance etched into his youthful features. "You're overreacting. This is just business. It's a good deal." James's heart raced, a tempest of emotions swirling within him. "Business? You sold my home, Marcus. You stripped the roof off my life. And you think this is just business?" He took a step closer, his voice low but laced with anger. "This is my life, my memories. This is where your mother and I raised you." The mention of his wife sent a jolt through Marcus, his bravado faltering for a moment. "I know, Dad. I thought—" He paused, searching for the right words. "I thought it would help. You've been struggling since Mom passed, so I took action." James clenched his fists, feeling the pressure build behind his eyes. "Struggling doesn't mean I wanted you to sell the house. It means I needed support, not betrayal." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustration flickering across his face. "I thought it would set you free. You've been living in the past, Dad. It's time to move on." "Move on," James echoed, incredulous. "By selling the place that holds every ounce of my past? Do you even understand what you've done?" As the walls seemed to close in, James felt his resolve hardening. He had spent countless nights in this kitchen, the heart of their home, where laughter danced alongside the aroma of his wife's cooking. Now it felt like a courtroom and Marcus was the accused. "Dad, please." Marcus's voice softened, his eyes pleading. "I'm trying to help you. I thought if we sold the house, you could get a fresh start somewhere else, somewhere new." A bitter laugh escaped James's lips. "A fresh start? You think moving away from all this will erase the memories? That I can just pack up the essence of who I am and leave it behind?" James took a deep breath, the air thick with tension. "You've taken away my choice, Marcus. That's what hurts the most." For a moment silence reigned. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, counting down the seconds to an inevitable confrontation. James glanced around the kitchen, taking in the chipped tiles and fading paint, each imperfection a testament to the years of love and life lived there. "Do you remember the Christmas we spent here? The year we made that awful gingerbread house?" Marcus finally said, a hint of nostalgia creeping into his tone. James's heart softened, just slightly. Of course. You insisted on using that awful green frosting, and we ended up with a disaster that looked nothing like a house. Exactly. Marcus chuckled, a brief lightness cutting through the tension. But we laughed about it for weeks. This place is full of memories, and I know it's hard to let go. But sometimes you have to. James shook his head, his pulse quickening again. Let go? You could have talked to me, Marcus. We could have figured this out together. But you wouldn't listen. Marcus shot back, frustration bubbling over. You were so wrapped up in your grief that you couldn't see it. I thought this was the only way to get you to move on. James felt the anger boil over, a fierce flame igniting in his chest. You thought for me. You thought you knew what was best, and look where that has gotten us. You've sold the one place I thought I could still hold on to her. With every word, James's voice grew stronger, fueled by the hurt of betrayal. You took away my agency, my right to decide my own future. It's not just a house. It's our history, and you've thrown it away like yesterday's trash. Marcus's face paled, the realization of his actions dawning on him. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said, his voice trembling slightly. James's heart ached at the sight of his son's turmoil, the conflict etched deeply in his brow. Then what did you mean to do? To save me from myself? You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Maybe I thought I could save us both, Marcus admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I thought if I could just take away the burden, we could start fresh. I thought you'd thank me. The vulnerability in Marcus's tone pierced through James's anger like a knife. He glanced away, the weight of his own grief pressing heavily on his chest. And what do I do now? Do I just pack up my memories and walk away? Maybe. Marcus hesitated, struggling to meet his father's gaze. Maybe we can find a way to make this work. I can help you look for a new place, somewhere that feels like home again. James's heart sank. A new place? You think a new set of walls will make this pain disappear? The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. James felt the familiar sting of tears, but he fought them back. He had cried enough over the last year. Now it was time to stand his ground. The kitchen light flickered, casting long shadows that danced across the floor. It felt like the home itself was caught in the struggle between past and present, between love and betrayal. I'm calling the FBI, Marcus, James said, finally breaking the silence. What you did is fraud, and I won't let it go unchallenged. Dad, no. Marcus's voice rose in protest, desperation pouring from every word. You really want to take it that far? You think that will fix anything? It's not just about fixing anything. It's about accountability. You can't just take things into your own hands without considering the consequences. James could see the panic in his son's eyes, the boy who had once looked up to him now standing in the shadow of his own actions. You're my dad. I love you. I never wanted to hurt you. I know you didn't, James replied, his voice softening. But love isn't enough if it comes with betrayal. You need to understand that. With a heavy heart, James turned away, walking toward the living room where the remnants of their life together lay scattered. The couch still bore the indentations of their shared moments, the photographs on the walls whispering stories of laughter and love. The memories wrapped around him like a familiar blanket, but the pain of loss felt sharper than ever. As he reached for the phone, he paused, his finger hovering over the screen. A part of him yearned to turn back, to forgive and move past this. But another part screamed for justice, for recognition of the hurt that had been inflicted upon him. Dad. Marcus's voice broke through the silence, trembling with emotion. Please don't do this. I didn't know how to help you. I thought I was doing the right thing. James's heart wavered, caught in the crossfire of love and betrayal. He turned, looking at Marcus, who stood there vulnerable, the boy he had raised still fighting to break through the man he had become. What you did was wrong, Marcus, James stated, his voice firm yet tinged with sorrow. But I want you to understand something. I love you despite everything. That won't change. But I won't allow my home to be taken from me without a fight. Marcus looked down, his shoulders slumping under the weight of his actions. I'm sorry, Dad. I really am. I thought I was saving us both. James nodded slowly, the air thick with unspoken words. We'll see where this leads. But know this. My love for you doesn't excuse your betrayal. We need to find a way to navigate this together. Marcus lifted his gaze, hope flickering amid the chaos. We can figure it out. Together. James took a deep breath, the gravity of the moment settling around them. They were both wounded, caught in a battle of intentions and misunderstandings. But perhaps there was a way forward, a chance to rebuild not just the house, but their relationship. Let's start by getting the facts straight, James said, determination threading his voice. And then we'll see what we can salvage. As he dialed the number, the shadows in the room seemed to shift, the air thick with the promise of change. Whatever lay ahead would not be easy, but it was a step in the direction of healing, if they could navigate the path together. The air thickened with tension as James stared at Marcus, his heart pounding like a drum in the silence of their once cozy living room. The golden light of the setting sun spilled through the window, casting long shadows that danced ominously along the walls, as if the house itself mourned the fracture of their relationship. James felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him, suffocating him with memories of laughter, love, and an unshakable sense of betrayal. Do you really think I'm going to let this go, Marcus? James's voice was low, but the tremor betrayed his simmering rage. You've taken everything from me. Marcus, standing just a few feet away, shifted uncomfortably, his youthful exuberance fading into something more vulnerable. The bright, naive spark that usually lit his eyes was now dimmed with uncertainty. Dad, I thought I was helping. You didn't seem happy here anymore. You thought wrong. James interrupted, his anger surging like a tidal wave, crashing against the carefully built dam of his composure. This house is more than just four walls and a roof. It's where your mother and I built our lives. It's where you learned to ride a bike, where we celebrated birthdays and holidays. You've sold our memories for a quick buck. I didn't sell it for a quick buck. Marcus shot back, his voice rising in desperation. I sold it to protect you. You were drowning in those bills, and I thought. James cut him off again, this time with a sharpness that sliced through the air. You thought? You didn't even bother to ask me. You just assumed that I needed saving. Marcus stepped forward, his eyes pleading, a mix of anger and regret swirling within them. I did what I thought was best. What would you have done? Just let the house fall apart while you sit back and watch? James's chest tightened at the accusation, a bitter taste rising in his throat. You don't understand. You've taken away my choice, my dignity. I had a plan, Marcus. I was going to find a way to keep this place. It might have taken time, but I wanted to do it on my terms. Your terms? Marcus scoffed, the frustration boiling over. Your terms were going to lead you to bankruptcy and despair. I couldn't stand by and watch you lose everything. I love you, Dad. You know that, right? The words hit James like a cold slap. Love. That word, once a warm blanket, now felt heavy and suffocating. You love me, but you also betrayed me. You took my agency without a second thought. How can you say you love me when you didn't even consider how I would feel about this? Silence hung between them, thick and suffocating. The shadows in the room deepened, echoing the growing chasm in their relationship. James closed his eyes for a moment, trying to steady his racing heart, the memories flooding back. His son's first steps, the quiet evenings spent on the porch, the laughter that once filled the air. Would he ever get those moments back? I'm calling the FBI, he finally said, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. You've committed fraud, Marcus. I won't let you get away with this. Dad, please. Marcus's voice cracked, desperation lacing his words. Think about what you're doing. You're going to ruin everything. I was trying to help you. I didn't mean for things to go this far. James opened his eyes, locking onto Marcus's pleading gaze. The boy he once knew, now a stranger standing in the wreckage of their bond. You've already ruined everything. With that, James turned away, walking toward the kitchen. The familiar scent of aged wood and lingering spices a stark reminder of the home he had cherished. The FBI, he had never imagined he would take such a drastic step against his own son. The thought twisted in his gut, a heavy knot of despair and resentment. He reached for his phone, the device feeling foreign in his hand. His thumb hovered over the contact for the FBI, hesitation gnawing at him. Was he really prepared to go down this road? To drag his son into a legal battle that could fracture their relationship beyond repair? Dad, don't do this, Marcus said, his voice softer now, almost a whisper. Please. James's heart twisted painfully at the sound, but he steeled himself. You made your choice, Marcus. Now I have to make mine. The phone rang once, twice, then answered, a crisp voice on the other end. FBI, how can I assist you today? James's breath caught in his throat. I need to report a case of fraud involving my son. As he spoke, the weight of his decision settled heavily on his shoulders, an anchor pulling him deeper into the abyss of betrayal and loss. He had just signed the death warrant for the last remnants of their relationship, yet he felt a strange sense of relief, as if the act of taking control of doing something somehow reclaimed a piece of his shattered world. The conversation was clinical, almost detached, and when he hung up, the silence that followed felt suffocating. He looked at Marcus, who stood frozen in the doorway, his expression a mix of anguish and disbelief. What have you done? Marcus whispered, tears shimmering in his eyes. James opened his mouth to respond, but the words failed him. Instead, he felt the weight of his decision settle deep in his bones. This was no longer just about a house. It was about principles, boundaries, and the painful realization that love could sometimes be a double-edged sword. Dad, please, Marcus pleaded again, stepping closer, his voice trembling. I didn't mean to hurt you. I only wanted to do what was right. What's right? James shot back, frustration boiling over again. You don't get to decide what's right for me. You took away my choice. Because you were too scared to make one. Marcus's voice rose, a mixture of defiance and deep-seated hurt. You were going to let everything slip away, and I couldn't stand by and watch that happen. I thought I was saving you. James shook his head, the pain of it all crashing over him in waves. You didn't save me. You condemned me to a life where I have to fight for my dignity all over again. This isn't just about the house, Marcus. It's about trust. It's about knowing that my own son would respect my wishes, my life. You didn't even think to include me in this decision. Silence enveloped them again, thick and suffocating. James's chest heaved with the weight of his emotions, anger mingling with sorrow. He felt like a shipwrecked sailor, desperately clinging to the remnants of his life as the waves crashed around him. Maybe I thought I was helping because I didn't know how to ask for your help, Marcus finally admitted, the fight in his voice ebbing away. I was scared, too. Scared of seeing you struggle and afraid of losing you. This was all I could think of. James's heart twisted at the admission. Here was his son, laid bare, revealing the raw fear that lay beneath his misguided actions. It was a painful reminder that they were both lost in this storm, each struggling to find their way back to solid ground. Marcus, But before he could finish, the doorbell rang, echoing through the stillness of the house. Both men turned, the sound jarring them from their emotional stalemate. Who could that be? James asked, his brow furrowing in confusion. I don't know, Dad. It's late, Marcus replied, shifting uneasily. James took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. I'll get it. As he opened the door, the cool evening air rushed in, carrying with it the faint scent of rain. Standing on the doorstep was a pair of agents in dark suits, their expressions serious yet sympathetic. "Mr. Allen?" one of them asked, his voice firm but calm. "Yes," James replied, a knot forming in his stomach. "We're here regarding a report of potential fraud involving the sale of your property. May we come in?" James felt the color drain from his face. This was it, the moment he had summoned with a single phone call. He glanced back at Marcus, who stood frozen, his eyes wide with horror. Yes, of course," James managed to say, stepping aside to let them in. As the agents entered, James felt a wave of regret wash over him. Was this really the path he wanted to tread? The air in the room felt heavy with unspoken words and unresolved emotions, as if the very walls were holding their breath, waiting for the storm to break. "Dad." Marcus's voice was a whisper, filled with a mixture of fear and disbelief. James turned to face his son, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. There was no turning back now. He had made his choice, but as the agents began to ask questions, he couldn't help but wonder if he had made the right one. The sound of the doorbell echoed through the house, a jarring reminder of the reality that had shattered their fragile family dynamic. James stood frozen in the living room, the weight of betrayal heavy on his chest. He could hear the murmurs of the FBI agents outside, their voices blending into a distant hum that felt surreal against the backdrop of the memories that clung to the walls. "Dad," Marcus's voice trembled, slicing through the thick tension like a knife. "You don't have to do this. We can talk. We can figure it out. Just don't let them in." James turned to his son, anger and pain swirling within him like a tempest. "Figure it out? You sold my house, Marcus. You sold my life. You have no idea what you've done." His voice rose, the words spilling out like venom, each syllable dripping with despair. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustration etched across his features. "I did it for us. For you. I thought it would help." "Help? You think robbing me of my home is helping?" James lashed out, the old man's heart racing, each beat echoing with the memories of laughter, warmth, and the love he had built within those walls. "These walls are filled with your mother's laughter, the echoes of our life together. You've turned our sanctuary into a battleground." The shadows lengthened in the evening light, creeping across the room like the encroaching darkness of uncertainty. James could see the conflict in Marcus's eyes, a mixture of guilt and stubborn resolve. "I didn't think you'd see it that way. I'm just trying to make things easier, Dad. You've been struggling since your mother passed?" James interrupted, his voice a low growl, thick with pain. "You think selling the house will make that hurt go away? It won't, Marcus. It never will." The doorbell rang again, this time more insistent. James's heart raced, a frantic drumbeat of dread and anger. He could feel the weight of the FBI agents outside, their presence a stark reminder of the consequences that awaited them both. "Please," Marcus pleaded, stepping closer, his youthful face drawn tight with anxiety. "Let's just talk. We can call them back. I'll explain everything. Just don't let them in." James's jaw clenched, the inner turmoil roiling within him. He had always wanted to protect Marcus, to guide him through the trials of life, but it felt like a chasm had opened between them, swallowing their trust and loyalty whole. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself, but the shadows continued to dance across the walls, mocking him with their flickering light. "Marcus, I need you to understand. This isn't just about the house. It's about respect," James said, struggling to keep the tremor out of his voice. "You took something from me that I can never get back. You didn't even think to ask. You just did it." The doorbell rang again, this time accompanied by a firm knock. "Mr. Allen?" A voice called from the other side. "This is Agent Harris with the FBI. We need to speak with you regarding a potential fraud case." James's stomach twisted at the sound. He could feel the walls closing in, the memories of family dinners and holiday gatherings suffocating under the weight of betrayal. He turned back to Marcus, who looked like a child caught in a storm, fear and defiance battling in his gaze. "I have to let them in," James said, his voice barely above a whisper, the resolve settling like stone in his heart. "I have to do this. Dad, please." Marcus's voice cracked, desperation spilling over. "You don't have to go through with this. We can fix this together. I'll make it right. Make it right." James laughed bitterly, the sound hollow and empty. "You can't undo what's been done. Trust is a fragile thing, son, and you've shattered it." With that, he crossed the room, each step heavy with the burden of his decision. The door felt like a threshold between two worlds, the one that had been filled with love and laughter, and the one that now stood on the precipice of betrayal. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the confrontation that awaited him. As he opened the door, two agents stood before him, their expressions serious and professional. Agent Harris, a tall woman with sharp features, stepped forward, flashing her badge. "Mr. Allen, we need to ask you a few questions regarding the recent sale of your property." James nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. "I know why you're here. My son sold the house without my consent." Agent Harris exchanged a glance with her partner, a younger man with an air of uncertainty. "We're here to gather information about the sale and to understand the circumstances leading to it." Behind James, Marcus stood frozen, the weight of his actions crashing down around him like a tidal wave. "You don't have to do this, Dad," he said again, his voice barely a whisper. James felt a flicker of doubt, a momentary hesitance at the thought of dragging his son further into this mess. But then the memory of his late wife's laughter echoed in his mind, reminding him of the love they had built together in that home. He turned back to the agents, finding the strength he needed in the certainty of his own pain. "Let's get this over with," he said, stepping aside to let them in. Each agent walked past him, their presence a stark reminder of the cold reality that had invaded his sanctuary. Inside the house, the agents began their questions, each inquiry a sharp reminder of the betrayal that had unfolded. "Can you tell us about your relationship with your son?" Agent Harris asked, her tone measured but probing. James swallowed hard, the lump in his throat threatening to choke him. "We used to be close," he said slowly, each word laced with the bitter taste of regret. "But lately, it feels like there's been a wall between us. I thought we could weather anything together, but now—" He trailed off, the unspoken words hanging in the air like a heavy fog. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, his gaze dropping to the floor. "I didn't mean for it to come to this," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "I just thought I was helping." "Helping?" James shot back, anger flaring momentarily. "You thought selling our family home was helping? You took away my choice, my autonomy." The agents exchanged glances, noting the rising tension in the room. "Mr. Allen, we'll need to see any documentation regarding the sale," Agent Harris stated, her voice steady, but the gravity of the situation was not lost on either father or son. As James retrieved the paperwork from his office, a suffocating silence filled the air. The house, once a bastion of warmth and love, felt cold and unwelcoming, the shadows stretching longer with each passing moment. He could feel the weight of the confrontation pressing down on him, the walls closing in as the past clashed violently with the present. Returning to the living room, he handed the documents to Agent Harris. "Here," he said, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and sorrow. "This is everything. I just want this resolved." Agent Harris scanned the papers, her brow furrowing as she processed the information. "Thank you, Mr. Allen. We'll take it from here." As they moved to discuss the details of the sale, James felt a sense of detachment wash over him, like he was watching a scene unfold from a distance. His heart ached for the connection he once had with Marcus, for the laughter and love that had filled the house. But now, All that remained was a chasm of hurt and betrayal, a void that felt insurmountable. "Dad, please," Marcus said again, his voice desperate. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I could help us start fresh." "Start fresh," James echoed, his heart clenching. "By taking away everything that made our family whole? You think I wanted to live in a house burdened by financial strain? I wanted to face those struggles together, not have them thrust upon me by my own son." Marcus's expression crumbled, the weight of his father's words crashing down around him. "I thought it was the right thing to do," he said, his voice wavering. "I guess I was wrong." "Yeah, you were," James said, his voice thick with emotion. "But it's more than just being wrong. You've broken something between us that can't be easily repaired." The agents continued their discussion, but James felt as if the world around him had faded into a blur. All he could see was Marcus's face, the anguish etched into his features, a mirror of the pain that coursed through James's heart. As the evening light dimmed, shadows crept into the corners of the room, wrapping themselves around the memories that lingered in the air. James felt a flicker of determination ignite within him, a small spark amidst the darkness. He turned back to Marcus, his heart aching but resolute. "We need to find a way to talk about this. Not just the house, but everything. I want to understand why you felt this was your only option." "Yeah," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "I want that too. I didn't know how to help." In that moment, amidst the turmoil of betrayal and hurt, there was a glimmer of hope, a chance to bridge the chasm that had formed between them. Perhaps this was the first step toward healing, a chance to reclaim the connection they had lost. As the agents moved to conclude their inquiries, James felt a resolve settling in his bones. No matter the outcome of this situation, he would fight for his family, for the love that still lingered beneath the surface, waiting to be reignited. "Let's talk," he said, his voice steady. "When this is over, we need to find a way back to each other." Marcus nodded, the tears glistening in his eyes, a silent acknowledgement of the pain they both felt. Together, they stood on the edge of uncertainty, ready to confront the shadows that had threatened to consume them. In that moment, amidst the ruins of their trust, James felt a flicker of resilience, an ember of hope that maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back home.